What does home mean when you've lost everything? Journey of a Refugee is a touching children's show exploring the refugee experience in the UK. I spoke to the director, Sue Buckmaster, to learn more about this important show. Take a look. Sue, welcome to People of Theatre.
Very nice to be here. Hello.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for your time. Journey of a Refugee here, Stanley Arts in Croydon. It's the story of the system that the refugees arriving to the UK go through, but also actually how they get here, so from the very beginning. Tell us a little bit about the show.
It's exploring the idea of what it's like for someone coming to the UK to call it their home. It's an immersive piece. Mm-hmm. It's aimed at anyone over 8 years old.
Wow, so really from the children from the very early age.
Yes, Theatre Rites tries not to exclude children from the work, but we will make the work as though it's for the quality of the adults we normally see.
And how did you work on the show? Did you have access to a particular life story or refugee or narratives, and how did you take care of the story to actually create the show?
Well, it sort of began 8 years ago when I was talking to Manchester International Festival, and we were talking about Brexit, and that was just being, going to vote. And we started to think about what show we could make to explore it. And then I started to talk to the Ruhr Triennale Festival in Germany, who was also at that point, Munich was sort of, welcoming many Syrian refugees at that time. And there was this glorious welcoming going on that we were seeing in the press. And then we were looking at Brexit happening in the UK, and Manchester International Festival said, I think we should do something about it. So that's when I started to research, mainly with solicitors, lawyers, refugee groups, artists working with these groups back 8 years ago. And that's when I met Mohammed, who plays Zayn in the show, and he did arrive 8 years ago. And we spoke to him about his story coming from Sudan.
Was there any particular challenge in trying to adapt his very strong life stories that have gone through so many difficulties to adapt this for a children's audience as well?
Yeah, I suppose it's because I've been making my work for children for 27 years now. Theatre Rites has been going. So I've got more confident about what I think children actually want to see, imagine, hear, ponder on. And by talking to kids, and we've done the workshops in the schools around here, and I've talked to kids before, and just they have a curiosity. And what I see at weekends, it's often a very adult audience that comes, and of course that adult audience knows. They know the situation. They don't know everything, but they know enough, and often they feel quite burdened with guilt and recognise and empathise. It's interesting when we perform it to schools. They come as a group of 90 kids, and they are really what I call practicing being political beings. So they are going, oh, what do I think about this? Or do I want to know about it? And do I agree? Do I not? So it's not about making them guilty. It's not about going, you must know this. It's about saying, have you thought about this? Because there's usually a couple of refugee children in the class anyway.
Why do you think it's so important for you, your company, for your practice to tell the stories for children?
Well, because we're all experiencing this, and it's just a universal experience to think about how we share our home and our resources with others. It's just a basic human activity. I don't feel it's not exclusive to adults. Children do it better than adults do. So that they can really help us ponder on this, like they're helping us with the climate issues. So it is time. I think the piece, for me, it's done in a style of magic realism, which means you can really project what you want to on it.
There's a very powerful moment in the show where actually we go through the UK Asylum system. Tell us a little bit about that moment and how you created it.
I wanted the piece to be immersive, and I like also breaking the boundaries of what theatre is. Children don't necessarily, it might be their first venture to theatre, and they might not know the rules, and it's quite nice to move around and explore spaces that aren't the sort of proscenium arch. And also immersive theatre, it's like you see it in Shoreditch, you see it in town, it's becoming quite a commercial venture. You can go and see Guys and Dolls, but actually people in Croydon or people in Dinslaken in Germany, these are real local people who may not get or can afford to go to those big immersive events, but the same people of the same, the creative team are from that and they're bringing it here. So this is such a treat to bring that stuff out of the West End and let people wander around. So it was like what could be interactive. And that's when we came up with the photography or the fingerprinting, just to make it fun and interactive, but also thoughtful to go, oh yeah, well, just to exist, to have a home, do you really have to do all this?
There's puppetry, there's movement, there's theatre, there's such a sweet theatrical show. How do you work with all these creative languages and how would they actually serve the story, you think?
Theatre Rites work is well known for object theatre, puppetry, moving into dance with objects. I call it object dance. So it's really about how can objects be metaphors. So it's powerful for an adult to watch because they understand the metaphor, but it's slightly gentler for children if their life jacket represents a person,
Right.
rather than having a person doing it. It's useful. We have the scarf merging into the mother he has to say goodbye to. Children relate to that, saying goodbye to their carer at some point in their life when they go off to school. So the separation is a universal experience, but in this case, it's a really powerful separation. And so again, I wanted to do it through just using a scarf and forming that just fleetingly into a puppet. These are the things I really like doing, and I've written a whole book about that, about the power of objects and puppets on stage in collaboration with dance or theatre or live music.
You were mentioning about Theatre Rites, 27 years, almost 30 years. How has the making of theatre for children changed all over these years, if anything? What do you think?
Well, when we first set up Theatre Rites 27 years ago, that was just when site-specific, we called it. What we call now immersive theatre was called site-specific. So it came out of the theatres and was put in real sites. And our first show was Houseworks, because we were sitting there going, well, this is great. Lots of adults are seeing this work, but children aren't. And we think children might enjoy it. So actually our very first show was in a normal house for under fives to go around, which was quite mind-blowing.
Wow.
And when we opened, it was actually full of adults wanting to see it, and we had to limit the tickets because it was like, no, it's for the little ones. So it told us that they wanted to have that experience too. Immersive art was growing at that time, so that's what we wanted to do. But then we were asked to do work in theatres and take that sort of immersive quality into the theatre. Because also a lot of children's work at that time was just at weekends. You would have to get in very quickly, sometimes be asked to do it on somebody else's set. And I was like, I'm an artist. I don't want to be performing my show on somebody else's set. Why should I be willing to do that just because the audience are kids? This is not okay. It's not respectful to me as an artist. It's not respectful to the kids. So we insisted on week-long runs and getting in and doing proper lighting states and really nurturing an audience to come, which we did. The theatres were packed, wanting to see children's theatre in a theatre because they'd had a lot of theatre in education going into their schools. And now what's happening, because the whole situation is changing again, I find that now we almost want to go back to taking some theatre into schools because the schools have cut the arts as projects. And also the theatre prices are going up. So now it's come full circle that actually we need to start taking the work back into the schools or making them in venues like this that are a little bit more audience friendly or locality friendly. Community-based. And like library shows really taken off now. And this is challenging for artists because you don't have all the resources.
You've got to adjust on the spot.
You've got to adjust, yeah. So I suppose I've seen big changes and no changes.
Right. Full circle, in fact.
Full circle. The respect for children's theatre is always really difficult. And generally, this respect for children needs to, in our whole landscape, needs to be addressed. And the respect for artists as well, making work, particularly artists that do engage socially. They're brilliant.
They are. And
They're
it's such a
brilliant.
huge responsibility when they, interact with children.
And the work that goes on around that, the safeguarding, the making sure you do your research, make sure we do offer free tickets and help refugee families come to see the show. All of that takes a lot of time, a lot of care, and has to be properly funded.
A lot of skills that are actually top-notch skills in theatre and dance.
Yes.
Yeah. Sue, thank you so much for your time for this.
Thank you.
And Journey of the Refugee is here in Stanley until the 18th of February.